up, guys, and welcome back to the Try Time podcast for episode 54. I'm Matt.
And I'm Callum.
And today we are joined by yet another special guest. We have, from our official affiliate club, Egremont Rangers, we've got Aaron Shaw joining us today. Aaron, I'll give you a bit of chance to introduce yourself and the club to anyone who's not too familiar with what you guys are up to.
So I'm Aaron. I'm the social media manager at Egremont Rangers. We're currently an NCL Premier League division club based from in West Cumbria. So yeah, a bit of a rural part of the country. We have teams from under 60s, I believe, right through to two open aged. Just recently last year set up our girls section, so we're moving forward with that. And so yeah, you have followed us on any of the social channels and stuff like that. It's I'm the annoying one behind it. If you're seeing all them videos or little quirks that we put into our feed, ideas do come from myself unless I'm told to do something.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Aaron. And yeah, I guess for you guys at home, this is hopefully going to be a bit more of an insight into the side of rugby that we don't really talk about as much, being the community game, especially with all the fancy graphics and everything that we see from Super League these days. It's kind of easy to forget that sometimes that these guys not only exist, but are also the bedrock almost of training half of the Super League and Championship players that, you know, might be playing for your clubs right now. So I guess with that in mind, Aaron, looking at like the NCL Premier as you guys are, what goes into running a club at this level, especially where that might differ from the much more cash-rich equivalents up at the top of rugby league?
I don't think people actually fully appreciate how much work goes behind the scenes at the community level. Like, you look around some clubs like ourselves, your Wathbrows, your Hunslet, your Fat O'Heaths, clubs like that pretty much run as semi-professional clubs just without the title. You're travelling up and down the country every week, could be upwards of 4 hours. I think I saw bus travel, having to try and bring paying fans through the gate, giving them a reason to want to come and watch their local team. And obviously it's trying to see the best of the best that community rugby sort of has. And obviously we don't get the money behind us that you see up at the levels get. It's all raised in-house through sponsors, through, like I say, through the paying gates, the paying supporters. So you're looking for teams like ourselves and other teams from the likes of Yorkshire and Lancashire that are travelling, costing upwards of £10,000-12,000 to complete a season in just bus travel alone. So probably doesn't get the recognition it deserves in terms of bringing it all together with everyone behind the scenes and the amount of people you need pulling together behind the scenes to actually put a team out on the park every Saturday afternoon at 2:30.
Yeah, that's definitely something that, like you say, I guess the fans of the bigger clubs won't appreciate, given that they've no doubt got much bigger sponsorship deals to throw at that kind of thing. I guess then with finances in mind, and this is probably quite a topical one given that we're approaching the Cup weekend round 6 this time. Obviously the RFL changed the likes of the Challenge Cup and everything a few years back to bring the league teams in from, is it round 4 onwards now? Maybe slightly around 3. How is it for you guys? Does that work better for you in terms of being able to potentially progress to later rounds, or would you quite like the idea of drawing one of the big boys at home, even if the scoreline might not look quite so pretty?
Well, with the Challenge Cup itself, we actually took the decision a couple of years ago to not enter the Challenge Cup because it wasn't worth its while. For the amount of work that needs to go in, you were getting very little output out of it, and mostly resulting in injuries for your league campaign. I believe it was 2015. We took part in the Challenge Cup and we were ravaged by injuries from the Challenge Cup run, which ultimately nearly got us relegated in the league season because that much, and there was basically no output of it. So it's, from our point, it's very much different to what other clubs that sort of feel about the Challenge Cup, when it's just not worth its money. But coming back to what you said, personally, I would love to see the bigger clubs come in sooner. Long gone if the fairy tale chance of an Egremont, a Wafbrow, a Kells taking on Wigan, St Helens, Leeds, because you've got no chance now that it's gone down to 4 teams from below Super League. The only ones left. You've got no chance of that upset. So a little bit, now obviously with Challenge Cup in our history was that in 1998, and that's a long time ago, and I was 3 at the time. We actually were the first community team to nil professional opposition when we beat Workington Town 18-0 at the recreation ground. That tie then set up a clash against Sheffield Eagles, who obviously famously won the cup that year. So obviously it is showing that back then there was that chance of progressing through the rounds and getting up against a big team. But obviously with the changes, it just doesn't bode well for the amateur teams to get that fairy tale opportunity to take on them sides.
No, that makes sense. It certainly sounds like, I guess, from everyone at your level, the opportunity and I guess the gate receipts that would come with even an away trip to, like you say, the DW, Headingley, some at the Cake on one of the bigger grounds like that would be something that certainly be welcomed at your level of the game. Would you be worried, I guess, about the disparity it could cause if one club got those opportunities, whereas say the other half of the division kind of drew each other and didn't really get the benefits from that?
No, I don't think so, because I think that's something that's very special, obviously, in the community game, that everyone in the community game, as much as they want to beat each other on a weekend and obviously claim the silverware at the end of the season over one another and claim them bragging rights, everyone sort of wants the best for one another and supports one another where they can. Personally, I actually went to support Fat O'Heath against Featherstone in their Challenge Cup tie, just to go and support some community rugby league and give that pretty much kudos to them for hosting. It was a wonderful day. So yeah, I don't think it would cause much disparity or much resentment, because everyone's just happy for one another and to see people progress and have that opportunity, because obviously one year it could be one team and another year it could be another. It's just, like you say, it's the luck of the draw.
I guess then, just looking in terms of the actual on-pitch stuff, obviously this year in the NCL Premier, you've just, of course, celebrated your first win of the season. You know, how do you envisage this year going? What's kind of your goals at the club?
I think for this year, we've just got to sort of try and consolidate and stay in the division. Obviously, being promoted last season after getting relegated the season before was a big achievement for the club. So I think most of this season is looking to consolidate, putting in them performances that we know the lads can, and just try and stay in the Premier Division instead of sort of yo-yoing through the divisions. Because as you've seen, some teams that we've actually come up against in the past have been relegated on the bounce 2-3 times and dropped from that Premier Division down to Division 2. And obviously it's not what you want. You want to be in the upper echelons of Community Rugby League and to have that moniker that you are one of the best 12 teams in the country at that given time.
I guess obviously it's an interesting time for Community Rugby League with the RFL this week coming out and sharing their revised structure for the Championship and League One, particularly with the opportunity for a new team to enter the third tier. Obviously, you guys have come out already on social media and said that you are happy in staying in the NCL system. What's kind of driven that decision, and what, I guess, for other clubs out there are the key sort of indicators they're looking at when deciding whether or not to apply for a League One spot?
Obviously, geography is a massive driver for us as well. Obviously, where we are, we have Whitehaven and Workington in close proximity, who are already both League One and Championship teams. And then obviously with the main employer employing the majority of the local players, both in the League One and the Workington side and the Whitehaven side as well, it sort of all comes together that we'd probably, if we were to make that step up, you'd be really struggling to get the standard of player consistently available. It's already a challenge at times now, playing in the NCL Premier Division, to obviously have a consistent side out. And then you're obviously asking players then, once you become sort of into that professional standard, to change their way of lives, not being able to go on holiday mid-season, not being able to have planned weddings and sort of changing all that aspect. So that's one of the major aspects that we obviously discussed when I saw that rumour come out. Another one's obviously infrastructure. Obviously there's minimum standards that need to be met to play at a higher level, and our ground unfortunately probably wouldn't meet them requirements. Our main ground is a 5-minute walk away from the clubhouse, so we've only got 2 changing rooms. It's just wouldn't be viable to change that infrastructure for, in what hindsight could be very little gain moving up through the levels. And then obviously you're then pulling on a lot more behind the team, behind the curtain sort of stuff that you don't really see. Obviously we're working as a small group of volunteers at the moment, actively recruiting, so I'll get that added in, for people to come and help the sort of committee to get us where we are. So it would be like a drain on personal funds, as to say, and obviously monetary funds as well.
No, that makes perfect sense. I guess kind of following on from that, then obviously you know the community game really well from spending years in and around this top division. Are there any teams that you see currently in the NCL Premier that would be ready to make that step, or are you thinking it's maybe more going to be an outside party that would be best placed to take this spot?
I think it's hard to say. You can go around the community teams, and obviously there's some great community clubs, and some clubs that have fantastic infrastructure. You only have to go to sort of Rochdale, Mayfield, and see that they basically have a League One stadium that they're playing anywhere, and they're constantly improving. Lee Miners Rangers have just, and albeit I know it's for more the youth teams, but they've got nearly £500,000 artificial pitch, I believe, that they have as well, which is all state of the art. Squad wise, you only have to look at the upper regions and what some of the teams have done in the Challenge Cup to show that they are, on playing field wise, up there and will be able to compete and make the step up. So quite hard to judge, but personally I think it will be someone coming from the outside that will be probably better suited. Obviously I've heard that Carcassonne are the favourites. They seem to have everything in line and have been doing well in French Elite One for a number of years. So as much as I do believe that an NCL club could make the step up if they're really pulled massively together and managed to tick all the boxes, I just feel like it will be an outside club that makes that final place.
I guess just parking the NCL to one side for a second, obviously, you know, you're very much involved in Egremont and they will no doubt be your main rugby focus.
Yeah.
What's the rest of you like in terms of rugby, both, I guess, as a supporter and also a neutral?
Well, rugby is obviously my life. I've been brought up in it since I can remember. My dad was obviously a big part in that. He was a professional player for a short time at Carlisle when they had a team, and then obviously he dropped back to Egremont, so where he was player, bit of a under 18s and A team coach, and he's now actually the chairman of the club. So I've been brought up since I was born, basically. I've been in the rugby circle, so it is obviously my life's passion. Met my partner through rugby, which is also a bonus, and obviously got all our family now that's big rugby fans. I know it might not be pleasing, but we're all Wigan fans, with the exception from me mum, who's a St Helens fan, so there's a bit of rivalry goes on there.
Be interesting on Good Friday then.
And before anyone asks, no, I haven't managed to get a ticket for Good Friday. So yeah, most of our weekends from Thursday through to Sunday is spent watching rugby, and half the other time is preparing for rugby. Funnily enough, I actually moved. As weird as it sounds, I don't actually live at Egremont anymore. I do everything remotely that I do. I moved to be with my partner and live in Wigan. So my stepdaughter actually plays for Wigan St Pat's under 8 Lions. So I'll give them a shout out while I'm on here. So yeah, it's sort of the big passion for all of us, really. So we're never too far away from the action.
I guess the obvious one off the back of that then is, I guess, first on Good Friday and the season as a whole, which side of the family is going to have the bragging rights, do you think, this season?
There's only going to be one side of the bragging rights this season. It's got to be the cherry and white, isn't it? You only have to look at the squad assembled.
They do seem to be the early favourites in terms of, well, both the bookies and everyone we've had on the pod so far. I think, what is it, only Johnny that was willing to go against that and back his own Saints?
Yeah, well, that's Johnny Lewin, though. His Saints through and through, like.
I was going to say, you can't really get anyone more St Helens than him when you see him ranting about on Twitter every now and then, and normally aiming the shots at the Wigan side of things. But obviously now we're Super League champions, World Club champions, so hopefully Matty Peake can carry on the way he's going.
I mean, I guess there's a danger here we've turned off all the non-Wigan fans, so we probably should bring this quickly back to the division that's not going to offend anybody too much. Obviously, the RFL, I guess, they're a big part of rugby league in general. How do you find them in terms of the community game, like the support aspect from them and, that side of things?
Well, obviously, with the NCL, we actually have a permanent sort of member of the RFL who we deal with, Alan Smith, and he is fantastic to deal with. If you've got any queries or any issues, and you can speak to him, and he will deal with them promptly. And we've never had a problem with that side of things. Obviously, the RFL as a whole is a whole different matter. You see what they're currently doing to the sport and how where the sport's going, and you do think at times, how is this going to look in the future? But back on an NCL level, the NCL obviously have their own committee as well that sort of run the NCL. Trevor Hunt is the chairman of that, who works for BBC Radio Manchester, and is a very well established sports journalist. So he heads it with a very good ship with his committee underneath him, and then the clubs all have our regular meetings and get a say in the matters. And obviously it goes through votes if there's any amendments to be made, any rules. Like recently, obviously, don't know if you've seen, but they introduced dual registration to the NCL. Yeah, that obviously went through a vote of all the member clubs whether they wanted to bring it in for this trial. So in that sort of sense, it does all link together, work together. Everyone tries to come to the general consensus, and we move forward with what's decided as a whole rather than singular. Obviously, you have to make your decision on your own club's interests, but also think of the wider game as well.
And I guess jumping in the dual registration point there, is that something that you guys have looked at sourcing for next season, especially given the strong Cumbrian connections?
Well, it's actually live for this season. The teams have already been utilising it this season, so it's obviously trialled in. With the way it works, though, you need to go back to your parent sort of club. So if a player's signed from West Bowling to say Hunslet, and Hunslet don't that player, he will be offered to West Bowling first. And obviously, the player and the two clubs have to agree on that. And you're only allowed, I believe, 6 players throughout the season, and only 2 in any match day squad. So it is currently happening. I've seen a few teams already utilising it. On ourselves wise, because of that rule, we only really have sort of 2 players that's currently in the professional ranks that we probably could use that would have first dibs on. That's one at Whitehaven and one at Workington. But unfortunately, at the same time, the one at Workington is currently the Workington captain, or he has been captain in the side. So I don't think they'll be making him available anytime soon. And I believe that the one at Whitehaven is currently injured and then possibly out for the season. So obviously we don't have that option either. But when we obviously discussed, we were given time to discuss prior to the vote, the internal discussions that we had is that we didn't fully agree with bringing in the dual registration because of that sort of reason. Up here in Cumbria, you've got a very small amount of professional players compared to the number of clubs that would be accessible to them in such a short distance. So you've obviously only got to look at the Premier, and there's ourselves, Wafbrow and Kells, all within 5-10 minute drive of each other, who would all be vying for the sort of same players. So we sort of felt that it sort of favoured more the Lancashire and the Yorkshire clubs who had access to more of the players as such. So we were against the dual reg being brought in.
I'm gonna say I know a lot of these players are probably Super League level, but Siddle, for example, have probably got 20 plus players currently playing, aren't they? In the sort of in the free leagues. So.
Well, you only have to look there at obviously, like you mentioned there, with Siddle, who, like I say, are a great club and have produced lots of players. But obviously, known from my Wigan side and thing, you've only got to look, and they've had players like Dupree, Amir Bura, who's currently at Salford and starting at hooker at Salford, and then obviously Morgan Smithies came through the Siddle ranks. I believe his brother is actually the current captain of the Siddle first team. So there is that thing, but I believe Siddle are a club that have actually utilised the dual registration, bringing in Liam Whitten from Cornwall. So like I said, the clubs like that do have sort of more access to players that have come through their ranks as compared to the ones up in Cumbria, where obviously we haven't got a Super League team, so we've got no academy structure. It literally is the community game, and then you jump straight into the semi-professional game, unless they've been picked up by Wigan, Warrington, St Helens scholarships.
Yeah, I guess obviously this is currently only a trial system, is the plan to review this then at the end of this season and make a more permanent decision as to whether this stays?
Yeah, it was a 12-month trial that was agreed in the NCL meeting. So they said that they'd review it when they come back at the end of the 12 months to see whether it can be put in sort of the permanent constitutional rules of the NCL and whether it'll be moved forward. It was a bit of a strange one, really, because the sort of the Cumbrian League, which is the league which our second team play in, and then the Northwest Counties, and obviously I don't know for the Yorkshire League, but I know the Northwest Counties in the Cumberland League, they'd already actually brought it in for Joe Reg to be allowed. So what the question was raised is that teams weren't willing to allow players to go to play in a Cumberland division side on Joe Reg, where it would just be sort of obviously A-team level players. They professional clubs were wanting more of the players to go to the NCL where they knew the standard and that it was a competitive standard week in, week out. So I believe there was a bit of obviously discussion between the professional clubs and the RFL and the NCL to try and bring this through to the benefit of all. Obviously, time will tell whether it's more of a benefit to, the professional clubs, the NCL clubs, or if it's a mix of both.
I guess I just want to, again, just step away from the NCL just a second and touch on one thing you mentioned in terms of the proximity. Now, obviously the idea gets floated about every few years of, well, why don't we just merge into one big Cumbrian Super League club? And it's always one that splits a lot of opinions. Obviously, you see these guys on the ground level every single week.
Yeah.
How would that go down, do you think, amongst the loyal Cumbrian fan bases of your Workingtons, Whitehavens, Barrows, and obviously all you guys at community level?
I think what a lot of people, as much as everyone says a Cumbrian Super League team, I think what a lot of people don't understand is obviously the geography of Cumbria. So you've got Workington and Whitehaven, which are obviously about 7 miles apart, so within close proximity. And then you've obviously got Barrow, which is about 42 miles south.
Yeah.
So on A roads, so you're looking at like an hour's travel time between Workington, Whitehaven to Barrow itself. So to merge all three of them just geographically doesn't make sense. It would be like merging Wigan with Leeds. It's the same amount of time. It's not geographically possible. As for merging, obviously the argument then is to merge Workington and Whitehaven together and become a West Cumbrian side. Personally, once again, I don't think that'll ever work. You've got too much of a rivalry and a hatred. Obviously, the idea was floated about many years ago when Super League first started about merging teams, and it would, not in a sort of grand, I don't want to diminish it, but it would almost be like merging Hull FC and Hull KR together. Like the both fans aren't gonna want that to happen. They support their own team and they're very passionate about it at that level.
Yeah, I'm going to choose Cass and Fev as my example, but that's another exactly good one to pick.
Yeah, it's just not gonna. You're just gonna end up probably losing the fans that, because they are very, very gladiatorial and passionate about the clubs. So yeah, personally, I don't think a merger would work. The best sort of option is either to bring a new club in with this IMG, and then possibly looking at how that would affect Workington and Whitehaven. Would they still be able to survive if there was an extra club, or one of them clubs has to obviously take the mantra and try and go for it, and obviously with the new IMG system work their way up the gradings to and league structure. And I would say, looking from my point of view, I have seen both clubs obviously striving to make the improvements off the field. I know there's talks of working and getting a new stadium, which would be massive for the area, and merging with the football team, and think having about a 7,000 sort of capacity community stadium, which obviously would be better than the current stadiums that they've got now.
See, you say that, but Workington Stadium is one of mine and Matt's favourite away days, actually. We are big fans of the picnic benches up on the top and stuff. Like, it's different, but
it's got a novel charm, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
With the old Speedway track around the perimeter.
That's a lot better kept than the Oddsall one, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, well, that's obviously rose from the ashes. The Speedway team, they've got a new ground on the other side of the river, so they're doing very well at the moment as well, and they're moving up. But it does obviously have its character. It's obviously hosted international games there. I was there on the night when Scotland drew with New Zealand in a Donnybrook masterclass. Obviously felt Scotland adopted it as the home ground, and you could say that everyone was rooting for them. And then the 2 World Cup games that were there between Scotland and Tonga and Scotland and Italy in 2013. So that's hosted some things, and they are, every credit to them, they are making improvements off the field. I believe they've got a marquee with a big screen that they're hosting. They've got, like you say, the picnic benches. They've got little areas that you can go for, like a little fan zone and stuff. So they are making and trying new and innovative things, like you say. But you can also bring that back to say about Castleford. That's the main argument, isn't it? Castleford, everyone says at Weldon Road, the jungle has a lot of character, but obviously in a new modern world, you need more than just character.
I guess you briefly just touched on, obviously, one of the options there to make a new club and see how that would work. I guess if you're sat there, I guess, the head of this operation, if you're thinking tactically then across Cumbria, where would you station that club?
Oh, like I said, the geography makes it a very hard question with transport links as well.
Because Cumbria's a very interesting place, isn't it, in terms of the rugby league landscape, and very different to, like you say, your Yorkshires and Lancashires.
Yeah. Obviously, you've got the one and only city is Carlisle, which have obviously had a professional team in the past. And then you would have obviously where they played at the football stadium, Brunton Park. So that, and obviously it has the link to the M6, but it's as far north as you can go before reaching Scotland. You've obviously got Penrith, which is also on the M6, which has in the West Coast main line train-wise. So you've obviously got access in that sort of way. But then, yeah.
I'm hearing Penrith Panthers here, and we just rip off the entire Aussie system, and that sounds like marketing genius.
Well, it's funny you should.
Flash a lawsuit, but
it's funny you should say that, because I know some people, family members, that they said when the World Club Challenge was on that Wigan were obviously playing Penrith, and they automatically assumed that they were playing Penrith in Cumbria, and wondered why it was such a big deal, and they didn't realise that they had a rugby league side, so that they got a bit of piss taken out of them, as per se, a bit of banter with them about their knowledge of geography and rugby league when we told them that it was Penrith, Australia. Bit of a different place altogether. But yeah, Penrith's obviously got the link, but then you're outside of the rugby league heartlands of the West. Funnily enough, that Penrith have had an amateur rugby league side in the past who were called the Penrith Panthers. And used the old Panther logo. The one.
You see a lot of that at the amateur level, to be fair, because I mean, you see plenty of Tigers, don't you, that use either an adaptation of either Castleford's or West's logo.
Yeah. So yeah, and then obviously then it's the argument of working in Whitehaven, or do you stick it sort of in between both in a place called Lily Hall, which is sort of like an industrial estate area between. Not much residential, not much there, but do you go and bite the bullet and put it in a central location between your heartlands, or then you're looking at going into to sort of Whitehaven or Workington. Grady side of me would say to stick it on Guildford Park and let's make Egremont the all singing and all dancing rugby league side in Cumbria. But obviously that's a pipe dream, and that'll, unless I win the Euro Millions, is never going to happen.
Well, I guess then, for the sake of Cumbria Rugby League, let's hope you win the Euro Millions, and then it can happen.
Better start putting in a chance of winning it.
Brilliant. I mean, Callum, I guess, is there anything on your mind in all this?
No, not necessarily. I just think it's really interesting. I feel like you're right. I mean, this is going back to the start, but you're right. People don't realise what it actually takes to run a club at this level. Like, I mean, what would the farthest away day be for Egremont? Where, like, obviously, I assume it's south, but how far south?
So this season, our furthest away day will be West Hull, and that is about a 4.5-hour coach journey across the country. So it will be a very, obviously, kickoffs at 2:30 on a Saturday, so you're looking at about 7:30 set off with a stop. So yeah, it's a full day out on a Saturday. Makes a very good, the bus back's a very messy trip. It's especially if you get the victory, then it's extra messy and good. But see, fortunately, we're quite fortunate as well this year that we have got Kells and Wafbrow in the league. So I think Wafbrow's 2.3 mile or 3.2 mile. It's one of them numbers that away. So that's not a long trip. And then, like you say, this weekend is actually the first time, even though we played one away game, it's the first time that we leave Cumbria, as you might have seen on the Twitter posts, because we're off to St Helens to take on Fatterweave, which for me now, living in Wigan's almost like a home game that I can get to and actually go and support the boys in the flesh. And I'm gonna relying on streams.
Yeah, I'm gonna say how many games do you actually get to up at Egremont?
Last season, slap on the wrist, all I think is I actually got up to none at Egremont itself last year in the promotion season. I managed to get to, I have a count, I think it was 4 games in the actual regular season. I was there for the first game of the season at Pilkington Rex, obviously St Helens again, to Crossfields, and then I managed to get obviously across. I made the point to get across to York to watch at Heworth when, if we'd have won, obviously promotion was secured, and promotion was obviously a very tight game, and we come out in that and secure promotion back to the Premier Division. So hoping to get up for a few more this year. Was very disappointed that I couldn't make it up for the derby last week. That was just due to some family issues that meant I couldn't go up, but obviously I will be making some priorities to get up and see the boys are back on Guildford Park.
Right. And I guess bring this up. Well, I guess we normally ask you, we kind of touched on that one.